launch, and then there's a second very special machine module that so what everybody could do off of Russians is they changed the order. That's their practice. It's very hard. Safely, very hard. So everybody kind of still needs that Soviet design for the entry. That's sort of customizing their order.
Okay. Speaking of running out of time,
Yeah.
I'm now going to introduce our guest speaker,
Thank you.
the president of the chapter. Okay.
There we go. Okay, thank you. This is an exciting introduction. Okay, so what is excitement? So whenever I think about excitement, I think about 4th of July and people dressing up for Halloween. By the way, how many of you all dressed up for Halloween? I didn't dress up for Halloween either, but I wish I did. Next time is going to be a space person for sure. Or running the Houston Half Marathon, which was actually between now and the last meeting, are some big sporting events. And what I'd like to see is some way to get people this excited about our future in space. And I thought to start off with, were there events that you have experienced regarding space that you found particularly exciting? And anybody care to share something?
I remember the space launches rather, Wayne and Shepard, and they were gathered around the TV, eating their fingers crossed. When I was a little kid, and my mom would say something, "Oh, this is taking forever." Don't you listen to her, kids? This is history. You're going to remember this. He was right. I remember it to this day. And of course, moon landing, all the way there, they were split out very sharply, right? Where I was when I was so amazed that it was happening in my life.
And you had one too?
I just remember a similar situation. Everybody was taking out their telescopes. I know there wasn't that great of telescopes during that time. We were trying to see the launch by telescope. And,
Oh, okay.
See where it was going, was it going to land on the moon? Couldn't really zero in that much. But it was exciting still.
That was pretty neat.
I sort of have one which is good and bad, and that's that it goes back to one of those first moon landings. And I remember my mother commenting that, this is really, an incredible milestone. And at that time, I was really an avid science fiction reader, really kind of into this stuff. And I actually replied that, oh, this is just a small step along the way. We're going to go so much farther, before you know it. And I was wrong.
Oh,
We're finally, I think now we're finally doing that. And somehow or other we missed quite a few years. About 30 years, no more than that.
Yeah, you were right. It's just you were early.
Yeah.
So,
I hope I'm right.
I hope you're right.
The excitement is coming back.
Yeah, indeed, I think so. Is it?
Yeah, so I'm really into science and stuff. I really like to learn about science and how things work. I really want to know how the rocket is trying to go all the way there and stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, you came to the right place. So that's definitely something we cover. Well, good deal. So y'all kind of touched upon my first part, which was the golden age of space excitement, which would be the space race. Da-da-da. Okay. So it kind of really started in 1955 with both the United States and the Soviet Union, both saying they would put something in orbit, which is kind of interesting. We knew that the moon's in orbit around the Earth. We know that the Earth is in orbit around the sun. But the idea of actually creating an artificial satellite had not been done before. We've talked about it. And we know conceptually, if you throw something, the farther away you throw it, and kind of the more, the less curvy that trajectory is. And if you throw it fast enough, you might be able to throw it so fast that the curve of that object actually matches the curve of the Earth. Now, if you're above the atmosphere, you could keep your speed up so that you continuously fall around the Earth. And actually, that's why it's probably more appropriate to call what the astronauts experience and what the satellites experience free fall rather than zero G, because there is still gravity. You have like the gravity of the Earth pulling that object around it, but you're just like constantly falling. Just like if you were in a very tall elevator and somebody cut the rope, you would float on your way down for a few seconds. Depends on the height of the building. Don't recommend it. Okay, so 1957, October 4th, theory became fact with the launch of a small Soviet satellite called Sputnik, which actually went around the Earth. And there was some debate, because the national territory of a country was presumed to extend indefinitely above that country. And so to have something in orbit, would it be violating some type of international law as it crossed over other countries? In some respects, the Soviets doing it first kind of answered that question as in, oh, I guess it's open to everybody. So that kind of worked out well. And naturally, this became very exciting. Maybe if you were in the Soviet Union, a source of national pride. If you were in the United States, a source of fear and scare. And so that really got us thinking that maybe we should take space a little bit more seriously. Of course, some people also saw the positive aspects of this. You had von Braun, who was at the same time publishing articles in Life about the potential of creating a rocket that would take you to the moon. So already planting those seeds of possibly going a lot farther than Earth atmosphere. Definitely a lot more positive vision of having humanity branch out into the rest of the universe to explore and extend humanity as opposed to delivering destructive payloads on other countries. So
it was pretty funny in that previous headline. They were saying that, oh my gosh, the Soviet satellites circled the U.S. 15 times a day.
Yes.
Circled the globe.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That is true. We're very home-centric. Then in 1957, the first living thing actually went into space, a dog named Laika. There's a cartoon illustrated book over there. Went to orbit and showed that you could actually have living things in space in a vehicle and they would survive. Lots of other firsts happen. You could look at them up on Wikipedia. I won't go over all of them. But one I think is worth pointing out is 1959, the first picture of the Earth from space. So now we're actually getting, instead of looking at other worlds from here, we're now out there looking back at us. And that perspective, I think, is important for us to keep in mind. And then lots of other firsts too. And then, of course, here's another good one. We had the 1961, the first chimpanzee in space. His name was Ham, and you can see the Mercury capsule that he was in. And then in 1961, we really made a big leap forward with Yuri Gagarin being the first person in space to orbit the Earth. And after he came back, he went on a world tour, and a lot of people were excited to see the person actually was able to first be the one to go around the world multiple times in just a few hours. So, and even today we celebrate Yuri's Night in April, and I think we're going to do something special this coming year as a chapter to kind of remember this remarkable experience and to celebrate future explorers as well. And then Alan Shepard, Freedom 7, launched just a month after that. So, I mean, it's like close, but they were very different flights. Yuri Gagarin went into orbit around the Earth multiple times. Alan Shepard launched inside his Mercury capsule on this rocket. And his trajectory basically took him into the Atlantic Ocean, not around the Earth, just a little bit. And it was a 15-minute flight. And landed in the ocean and was picked up by a helicopter. However, and news articles about that too. So very exciting times. How many of y'all read a physical newspaper these days? You do. Okay.
I know my dinosaur friend.
I mean, it was kind of neat because you're like, this is the news, and I could get through it and see the business page or the cartoons or whatever. But now it's just like infinite amount of news, and it's difficult to kind of have a sense on what the news is. But anybody want to guess what this is? You know what that is? Okay.
That is John Glenn taking off at a house.
That is right, and he completed 3 orbits around the Earth, and you can see the different ground stations that were used to communicate with them as they made those orbits. He's actually just orbiting in one plane, around the Earth, but as he's orbiting the Earth, is also spinning, and that's why you see kind of like that track come out like that. And he also landed in the ocean, was picked up. This is a common theme with the American spacecraft. And it was really, something else that really made headlines in the U.S. for sure. And of course,
This was how
so this, is in 1962, and Yuri Gagarin was, what year was that? May of 1960, April. Yuri Gagarin was April. Alan Shepard was May. So I guess about 5 months later. And Wednesday, January 31. Okay, so January, right?
already
That's true. We were, and if you have trouble with sprints, get everybody to sign up for a marathon. That's okay. So continue on. So lots more first. The first woman in space, first civilian in space, first Mars flyby. Of course, without a human in it. Lots of other firsts. And so now we get to here, which is 1968. Zond 5. Have y'all heard of this? Because I thought this was interesting. You've heard of this. So do you know what the payload was?
Zond 5?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah, it was like very small,
But much bigger than that, actually. Yeah. So the Zond 5, and it took a picture of the Earth on its way out to around the moon. And there's a picture of the Zond 5 model superimposed on the Earthrise thing. Of course, that's a generated picture, but to give you an idea on kind of, it went around the moon and came back to the Earth. And anybody want to guess about how about, I'll just tell you, it's tortoises. 2 tortoises went to the moon. I went around the moon and came back. And then, of course, in December 1968,
just make them the fastest turtles.
they would be the fastest turtles in existence. That is true.
Fastest turtles alive.
Turbo turtles, astro turtles. And then, of course, we had the 3 Americans who went around the moon on Apollo 8, and they took this famous Earthrise photo. And one of them remarked how they could just put their finger on the window and just cover up the Earth. And to think about, everything that we've ever known happened on that little bitty ball. And that little bitty ball is just a little bitty speck in the huge universe. So there's definitely a lot more for us to explore. And then coming to sort of like the peak of the excitement, which was the landing on the moon with the Apollo 11. So you can see some of the first boot prints that were placed on the moon. And of course, that was pretty much known by everybody on Earth, I think, at that time, between all the newspapers, all the magazines, all the TV coverage. I think everybody knew it.
Actually, the Russians do not allow that to be broadcast in Russia.
Oh,
The international TV of all over the world, except Russia and China. China, they didn't let people know about it for years afterwards.
oh, that's interesting.
I talked to an engineer who was trained around like 2005,
Uh-huh.
and he'd been warned. It's like, be very careful if you're approached by a Chinese citizen who says, "Would you come here and talk to them?" Don't take your hands out of your pockets. Because if they hand you something, they're trying to set you up to be arrested.
Oh no.
So the engineer stuck his hands in his pockets and went over there kind of nervously, like, "What is it you need to talk about?" And very quietly, the Chinese engineer asked him, "Is it true that Americans walked on the moon?" This was like 2005. And the American thought it over before answering. He said, "Yeah, it's true. We actually did it more than once. We did it about 5 or 6 times." And this engineer was like very, very surprised and then said, "Thank you." And they parted ways, and the Chinese guy went back to his little group of guys. And they all went, so yeah, so they kept it very much a secret. Very long.
That is awesome. Probably.
30 years after the fact.
And I see Barbara online had a question, had her hand up. Barbara, did you want to say something? Oh, I think she's no longer there. It's kind of interesting. Okay. Anyway, continue on. How many of you all have heard of an airline company called Pan Am? Okay. Well, anyway, and let me click here. There we go. Pan Am, actually, somebody was asking, when are you having trips to the moon? And somebody over in their marketing department said, you should hop on that. And they started this list of the first moon flights club. And they had 93,000 people between 1968 and 1971 actually sign up to be on the list of people to be able to go on the moon whenever flights became available. Now, unfortunately, Pan Am went out of business in the early 1990s, so that list has been reset. So you can.
It sort of explains why in 2001, that center picture, that was the space, the vehicle, the space station, Pan Am.
It was. And then, of course, we had other firsts. The first space station, which was Salyut 1, or Russian space station, and the first kind of surface transportation on the moon buggy. That's really cool. And then we really started kicking things into gear with the space shuttle, which was envisioned to be largely reusable with dozens of flights per year. The orbiter part would be reused. The 2 side boosters would be recovered and refurbished. The big external tank, of course, would have to be rebuilt each time. But the idea would be that rapid and nearly largely reusable, but it did not work out like that. It ended up launching, I think, most like 7 times per year. But exciting things are still happening in space. We got the International Space Station. There you can see a picture from a vehicle that either docked or undocked from the space station. I'm not exactly sure. And it's actually visible from the Earth. Right there on the right-hand side, you can see somebody with a telescopic view of the space station. And then the shimmering you see is the atmospheric effects of it. So it's kind of neat. And on the International Space Station, we have 7 astronauts full-time who are conducting research, maintaining the vehicle. And we have crews constantly going up there. Sometimes we have as many as, like 11 people up there at a time. And there's exciting things coming in our future. We have Artemis. We're going back to the moon. We tested this rocket back in November without anybody on it. We selected 4 astronauts to be on the first crewed flight, which was supposed to be at the end of next year to go around the moon. And then the one after that, Artemis 3, would actually land on the moon, would hook up with a SpaceX human landing system. And 2 of the astronauts would actually board this craft, go to the surface, do some EVAs, do some science, go back up to the orbital spacecraft. And talking about SpaceX, they are ready for their next flight. And this is a video they just released yesterday to kind of give you an idea of things that are in work. And that was all in Brownsville, Texas. That's like right here. And talking about SpaceX, you can't get away from talking about Elon. But one of the quotes that he said was, you want to wake up in the morning and think the future is going to be great. And that's what being a spacefaring civilization is all about. It's about believing in the future and thinking that the future will be better than the past. I can't think of anything more exciting than going out there and being among the stars. So, and that's what we're all about, is to kind of spread the vision about space exploration, the awesome opportunities that it represents. And this you can kind of see what a Mars base might look like at some point. So I'd like to take a little side step and talk a little bit about Countdown to the Moon and Hio Hero. So just to tell you a little bit about these 2 things. Back in 2019, the rocket that was launched back in this past November, like a year ago, was actually finished being, the core part of it was finished being completed. So this is December of 2019, and they had Artemis Day with the core story complete, and they had an associate administrator, Doug Laverio, who was going to be in charge of getting humans back to the moon by the end of 2024. And in order to keep everybody's mind on how many days we had and making every day count, he had a little lapel pin that he would update every day with the number of days remaining to the end of 2024. And he went around NASA highlighting, like on with 1,819 days, he highlighted a person who was helping to get us to the moon, and each day he would do that. And I was inspired to have a similar project called the Countdown to the Moon, where I, since December 17th of 2019, have been interviewing a person a day, and these are just random snapshots. Wherever I am, some people online, people fishing, people smoking, people, waiting for the bus, people enjoying their coffee, and people I just happen to meet in various places, and asking them, did you know that NASA is going back to the moon? What do you think about it? Where do you see humanity going? Would you take a trip to space and that type of thing? And I've learned a couple of things. First off, only about 20% of the people I've talked to know that we're going back to the moon. And most of those people are excited about it and even wonder why they didn't know about it. And largely that's because of the way that we get our news today. We had newspapers, we probably would literally be all on the same page. But considering the way that news is distributed, there's really no forum that's universally consumed by everybody So we literally are living in different worlds when it comes to news. A lot of people want to know, why are we going back? Haven't been to the moon before. What do we hope to accomplish? What's on the moon? Is there something valuable on the moon? And the answers to these used to be simple back during the Apollo days. We're going to beat the Russians. That was easy. Everybody can understand that. But what we hope to accomplish on the moon is actually a long laundry list and largely unknown because we want to explore. And so that's a little bit hard to articulate. A few even see humans traveling to the stars in the next 200 years, which is an exciting thought. And then, most people would take a trip if they could. Though, I got to tell you, some people are claustrophobic. And while space is vast, that capsule is very small. So you make that a little bit bigger, you would open up a lot more people would want to go. Anyway, all this boiled down to, I think, in order to have a really exciting future, we have to educate people about what that future is. And if we were to boil that down to like 4 specific things that I think we should kind of target with people in primary school, there's 4 specific things I would target. One is space is happening right now as we speak. If you're in primary school, high school and below, I guess it's not primary school, but if you're in high school and below, there has been somebody in space every single day of your life, which is kind of an awesome concept. And space exploration is just getting bigger. If you're in high school or below, by the time you graduate from college, people would have walked on the moon. And this one is probably the most controversial, but also the most exciting. In your lifetime, we will become a multiplanetary species. And most importantly, we need people of all sorts of interests and skill levels and skill interests to actually participate in this. So you can actually make this happen. And that is what I had for you all today. So any questions or comments?
One of the things with the original space program, I heard people say, oh, well, all sorts of skills and talents were necessary to go to the moon. And I had never really thought about it, but the astronaut spacesuits, they were made by a gang of like about 100 women in New Jersey, a place called ILC Dover. And before they had worked on the spacesuits, they mostly made brassieres for women and clothing for women. They got serious with this contract, and they made some very, very good spacesuits for astronauts. They had to figure out new ways to sew, how to use new kinds of materials that they'd never used before, and women are just absolutely incredibly skilled, and it was an area that I wouldn't have thought of in 1,000 years, include as part of working in space and having something to do with the space program. After I learned about it, I was like, well, of course. It makes so much sense. And actually, there's a second group of women who sewed the space shuttles. Space shuttles used a lot of resistant, not the heat-resistant tiles, but the heat-resistant blankets that were used on the white part of the space shuttle. And in the cargo bay, all the entire vehicle had to be lined with heat-resistant materials. And these women, that was their job. They went out there, they took the measurements, and then they basically made a dress for the space shuttle. Only it was made out of resistant materials. And there's only about 24 of them. Again, we owe a lot to these things, and their story doesn't get talked about very much. They're a very important part of the program. And this just shows so many aspects of the space program. I'm thinking about the giant test chamber that they have down there at Johnson Space Center. It's gigantic. The door is like 30 feet in diameter. It's huge. And you open it, one person can open it from here. You've got to balance so well. And there were people who worked on that that got very, very knowledgeable, very, very good at very know in order to test the station. Put it in there, park it on the floor, close the door, and then all the air out. And then they would do tests on it, make sure that it would actually work in the vacuum, which is a very important part of it. Very what people provide it. So yeah, and it was just 440,000 people working on the program. Rockets work. Yeah, and you only hear about 44 of them, or 100 of them. There's a whole lot more to it than that.
And you were going to say something?
Just that there is an excitement among the young people. I attend a lot of robotics competitions. And on the high school level, when they reach that level and they're still interested in robotics, they're always talking about space, how their designs can be implemented in going to the moon or other explorations. So there is an excitement, maybe not as much as we would like. There is a certain excitement among a few that are interested in it.
That's true. Yeah, I know it's the people that are involved are interested and excited, and I guess we just have to kind of expand that.
Well, and it's not just like robotics and stuff like that, but there's a need for welders. I mean, one thing that strikes me whenever I watch any of the footage down from SpaceX down there in that was an area down there that there was a certain amount of jobs in the oil and gas industry, but not so much. And then Elon Musk came in with SpaceX, and he has put that town on the map, Brownsville, and they are going to town. There is a lot of people working, and it's a lot of people who are from the valley, and down there in there, they're working as welders and technicians.
They are committed.
It's not just the rocket, it's the launch pad. It's pouring the concrete for the launch pad. It's like, yeah, some of the jobs are less glamorous than creating a rocket or running a rocket, but they are absolutely necessary. Every single one. Yeah, what I've seen interviews on YouTube, that these guys, it's like, they like Elon. He's the boss. They take care of the boss. They would do anything for him.
They even need baristas and pipe fitters and engineers and electricians and everything. But well, anybody online have any questions or comments? If not, I think we'll go ahead and please.
Yeah, so, how how are they gonna make a spacesuit on?
That's a good question. I mean, they're making spacesuits right now for the moon. So I think the idea is that those spacesuits would also be useful on Mars as well.
Like they have to add something.
That's true. I mean, it's extremely cold on Mars for sure. And I guess on the moon, you have like during the surface on the daylight side is what, like 200 degrees Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit, or on the dark side. So luckily on Mars, since it does have a very, very thin atmosphere, the temperatures are in a smaller range. But you also have like sand and other things to worry about.
I looked at Google Maps one time, and then there's like some area. I think that's an area of NASA. It's like I think a little place like they just got wrong.
Oh yeah, there's that just down here at Johnson Space Center. It's got like it's a little park, and yeah, it looks like the moon.
Is it's inside or outside or?
They built one indoors for Mars,
Okay.
And the one outside is for the but we had, let's hear, I've been to an NSS meeting where we actually had one of the engineers, she's late, who she's working on the spacesuits. And she showed us the gloves. And it was like, you never really think about it, but it's like, there's no air outside, it's zero, but on Earth right now, it's over, it's 15 psi, pounds per square inch. Pressing down, if you do a little square inch on your hand right there, there's 15 pounds worth of air pressure pressing down on it, but also on this side. 15 pounds. But if you have nothing, 15 pounds in a glove, and then nothing on the outside, suddenly that glove turns into a stiff balloon. And the astronauts actually, they're going on a mission outside of maintenance, ISS. They practice for weeks ahead of time. They walk around squeezing tennis balls because the suit they haven't quite yet figured out. But they build the gloves so that they actually, your hand is like this. Have your hand relaxed, glove makes your hand look like this. So it's sort of pre-bent a little bit so that then you can blow the rest of it, close your ribs something. And if they build it so it was flat, you have to go farther to get all the way. So, and she showed one of these gloves in pieces, and it was like, there were like 16 different layers of little wires and ropes and stuff. It's really hard, but then they got to be careful. Gotta have a sense of touch in space. This part here, the fingertips, is like a little rubber, what do you call them? Rubber fingertip cots. I think they're called little fingertip rubber covering them. And that's it. And kind of be careful because if they accidentally grab something sharp on the moon or working on the space station while they're at work, get a cut, and suddenly it's gonna leak. Now I think they have little secondary things that around your hand, airlock that slam closed around your wrist, but better get back inside fast because you actually need that. So there's a lot to space. It's very important. Yeah, so it's really interesting. And then you're basically carrying all your air and your water. You breathe it, and you exhale carbon dioxide, and normally that here's the air, but basically it's going to come right back at you. And so you have to have carbon dioxide air that you exhale. So yeah, there's just this every single thing. There are so many opportunities to work on stuff fun and interesting, more than robotics. Speaking to that, one of the neatest tools I saw in the SS.
Doug, real quick, I think I'm going to let everybody online just go. So we're going to close the online meeting, and then we'll sit around and we'll chat.
Okay.
That sounds good. Okay, well, thank you all. You all have a good day. And I'll just close this, and we'll leave.